Ever feel like taking things on blind faith can be kind of risky?
Yeah, definitely. There's a certain danger to it.
Well, that's exactly what Sam Harris dives into in The End of Faith.
Oh, yeah. The End of Faith. A pretty provocative book, for sure.
It really is. And in this deep dive, we'll explore his main arguments.
I'm interested to see where this goes. He definitely doesn't shy away from controversy.
Not at all. In fact, get ready to have some of your assumptions challenged as we unpack why Harris thinks blind faith is actually a threat to humanity.
Well, he starts off with a pretty stark look at history.
Yeah, he doesn't hold back on the tough stuff.
No, he doesn't. He brings up things like the Crusades, the Inquisition.
Even the blood libel against Jews.
Exactly. He really lays out all these terrible things that have been done in the name of religion.
You know, things like the stoning of heretics and even mothers being impaled on swords right in front of their children.
It's heavy stuff, and all because of differing religious beliefs.
It really makes you think, like, how often do we just accept things without really questioning them, you know?
Yeah, without demanding any evidence or thinking critically.
It's scary how easy it is to fall into that trap.
It is, and from there, Harris gets into what he sees as the dangers of Islam in particular.
Right. He argues that, like, the core ideas of Islam clash with modern secular values.
And he pulls some pretty intense quotes from the Quran to back that up.
Like in 9.123, where it says, "Believers, make war on the infidels who dwell around you. Deal firmly with them. Know that God is with the righteous."
Yeah, that's one. And he also points to 2.162.
Which says,
"But the infidels who die unbelievers shall incur the curse of God, the angels, and all men. Under it they shall remain forever. Their punishment shall not be lightened, nor shall they be reprieved."
So he uses these passages to basically paint a picture of Islam that's, well, unsettling to say the least.
Definitely. And it's important to remember that we're just looking at Harris's arguments here, not saying we agree with them.
Exactly, but it's important to understand these perspectives, even the tough ones, you know?
It's the only way to have a real conversation about these complex issues.
For sure. And Harris does acknowledge that violence isn't limited to just religion.
Right, but he argues that faith kind of acts as this amplifier.
Yeah, like it justifies things that would be considered totally unthinkable otherwise.
To make that point, he contrasts the lack of Buddhist or Christian suicide bombers with how common they are among Islamic extremists.
And then he makes this really thought-provoking comparison between George W. Bush's actions in the Iraq War and Saddam Hussein's.
That's a bold one.
It is. He suggests that there's this huge ethical difference between the two, even though both of them used violence to get what they wanted.
Makes you wonder, is Harris oversimplifying things a bit? I mean, these are really complicated geopolitical situations.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Does he go too far?
It's definitely something to think about.
And that leads us into another one of Harris's big arguments.
Yeah.
Can we even have morality without religion?
He thinks we can, but I'm curious to hear more about that.
Me too. Let's dive into that next.
Sounds good. Yeah, it's a really thought-provoking question for sure.
So how does Harris think we can have morality without religion?
Well, he argues that morality doesn't come from some kind of divine rule book, you know?
Interesting. So where does he think it comes from then?
He believes it's rooted in our biology, like it's part of who we are as humans.
Okay. I can see that. Like, we naturally want to be happy and avoid suffering.
Exactly. And that extends to other people too. It's not just about ourselves.
So he's saying we have this innate desire to see others happy as well.
Right. And he uses examples of people who aren't religious but still do really selfless things.
Well, that's a good point. There are plenty of people who are kind and compassionate without believing in God.
Exactly. And he even brings up research showing that even monkeys don't like to see others getting hurt.
Wow. That's fascinating. So is he saying there's like a biological basis for morality that goes beyond religion?
Yeah, that's his argument, that it's not about following rules from a holy book, but about something deeper and more universal.
I see. So it's more about reason and compassion than blind obedience.
Yeah. Right. He's challenging us to kind of rethink our whole approach to ethics.
To move away from this idea of a faith-based morality and find something more grounded and reliable.
And that's a really interesting point to consider because a lot of people's moral compass is based on their religious beliefs.
For sure. It's a big part of many people's lives.
Yeah.
So to suggest that we can have morality without religion is pretty radical.
It is, but Harris isn't saying that all spirituality is bad.
Oh, really? So he's not completely dismissing it?
No. In fact, he's really interested in the potential of exploring consciousness, especially as it's understood in Eastern traditions like Buddhism.
Oh, wow. That's surprising. I wouldn't have expected that from him.
Yeah, he even quotes this 8th century Buddhist master Padmasambhava who said, Mind is like space. It has no beginning, end, or center.
That's a pretty deep quote.
It is, and Harris sees it as this really profound insight into the nature of consciousness.
So is he saying that there could be a scientific basis for understanding good and evil?
Yeah, he actually talks about the possibility of developing a science of good and evil.
Wow, that's a pretty bold idea.
It is, but it kind of ties into his whole point about moving away from blind faith and towards a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
So it's not about rejecting spirituality altogether, but about approaching it with a more critical and reasoned perspective.
Exactly. It's about finding a way to understand our place in the universe that's based on experience and evidence, not just dogma.
I see. So he's advocating for a more grounded and reasoned approach to spirituality.
Right, and that brings us to the heart of what the end of faith is really about.
Which is?
It's about confronting some uncomfortable truths about how faith operates in the world.
Like what kinds of truths?
Well, it makes us question whether blind belief is really a virtue.
Yeah, I can see how that could be unsettling for some people.
It is for a lot of people, but Harris's point is that maybe a world where reason is more important than dogma could actually be more peaceful and ethical.
That's a really interesting idea to think about.
It is. The End of Faith is definitely a challenging read.
Yeah, I bet it's pretty dense.
It is. There's a lot of history and philosophy packed in there, but that's what makes it so compelling.
It forces you to really grapple with these huge questions about faith, morality, and what it means to be human.
Exactly. Harris doesn't hold back. He challenges some very deeply held beliefs.
And that's going to make some people uncomfortable, for sure.
It will, but whether you agree with him or not, he's raising issues that we can't ignore in the world today.
Like what kinds of issues?
Well, he even talks about the dangers of blindly accepting scientific ideas.
Oh, interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that.
He uses the example of Lysenkoism, which was this pseudoscientific theory that was really popular in Stalinist Russia.
What's wrong with it?
Well, it led to these disastrous agricultural policies because it wasn't actually based on real science.
Oh, wow. So it had real-world consequences.
It did, and it's a reminder that we need to be critical thinkers in all areas of life, not just religion.
So we should always be questioning our beliefs and looking for evidence to support them.
Exactly. Whether it's religion, politics, or even science, we should never just blindly accept things.
That's a powerful message for sure.
It is, and at its core, that's what the End of Faith is all about. It's a call to embrace reason and break free from the shackles of blind belief.
And to build a world based on truth and well-being.
Exactly. It's a vision that might seem idealistic to some.
Yeah, especially in a world with so much conflict and division.
But the urgency of Harris's message is undeniable.
So he's leaving us with this question. Can we create a better future by choosing reason over dogma?
That's the challenge he's putting forth.
Yeah, and it's a question worth thinking about, for sure.
Definitely, if you're intrigued by these ideas and want to explore them further, I highly recommend checking out The End of Faith.
You can find a link to buy the book in the episode description.
And don't forget to subscribe to The Deep Dive for more deep dives into complex and fascinating topics.
Yeah, it really is. It kind of makes you wonder, can we actually separate faith from morality? Like, is it even possible to have a world where reason is at the forefront, especially with all these deeply held beliefs out there?
Well, that's the core of what Harris is getting at, right? He's asking us to take a hard look at whether blind faith in any form is actually a good thing.
Right.
Or could it be, holding us back from building a more peaceful world?
The End of Faith definitely doesn't give us easy answers.
It really doesn't.
It makes us wrestle with these tough questions and think about what our choices could mean down the road, both for ourselves and for everyone else.
Absolutely.
Whether you end up agreeing with Harris or not.
Yeah.
The End of Faith is a powerful reminder that we all have this responsibility to think critically, to challenge what we believe, and to really talk about the ideas that shape our world.
I think that's a crucial point.
So if you're ready to dive into a book that'll make you think, question things, and maybe even rethink some of your own beliefs.
Yeah, if you're up for a challenge.
We highly recommend The End of Faith. You can grab a copy using the link in the episode description.
And of course, don't forget to subscribe to The Deep Dive for more explorations of these kinds of challenging and thought-provoking topics.
If you enjoyed this deep dive, share it with your friends, family, anyone who might be ready to challenge their own assumptions. Thanks for listening.